What up, world? Welcome to episode 121 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, Eagles OTA and owners meeting update episode. I'm happy to be here. Another beautiful day with you guys. As always, like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. If you're looking to check out more content for the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, you can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. Happy to be here on this beautiful May 30th, 2025. May is already fast ending and June's soon approaching. So happy to be here and bring another jam-packed episode for you guys. But before we get started, as always, want to make sure that we give a shout out to several friends of the show. First two being StubHub and Viagogo, the number one and number two leading ticket resellers and sellers, best ticket getters for live events, to concerts, shows, and live events. If you're looking right now for Viagogo, for my UK subscribers, there's a lot of things going on right now. You got Coldplay touring right now, Bad Bunny, Billie Eilish, Dua Lipa, Lady Gaga, and so much more. Also, there's several festivals that's going on that I'll have also within the creative ID links within the description box of this video. So definitely, I implore you guys out in the UK to definitely check that out. For my StubHub subscribers over here in the United States, jam-packed right now with NBA playoff tickets. If you're looking to get NFL season tickets, those are available. Also, Beyonce, Benson Boone, and Kendrick Lamar and SZA are touring. So don't wait. You know, if you're definitely looking to get out to these concerts and these events, definitely grab these tickets as soon as possible. StubHub and Viagogo, again, the number one and two leading ticket sellers in the world for live events, shows, and concerts. And last but not least, if you're an avid gamer like myself and are big into PlayStation, I have a special surprise for you. Currently, right now, Sony PlayStation is running their Days of Play 2025. It is literally starting from, it says here, May 25th all the way until June 25th. So make sure if you're an avid gamer like myself, you're looking to, take advantage of these nice sales, these packages that Sony has available, I would implore you to check the creative ID link within the description box of this video. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. Again, guys, happy to be here with you. Like I said, this episode is going to be dedicated to the Bird game, Fly Eagles Fly. Very happy as hell to see the progress of what the team has done so far this offseason. I took a while to make sure that I had all the information that I wanted to do before I did this episode. It's going to be a longer episode. You'll be seeing this first on Substack, and then it'll be coming to YouTube. Just because the content itself is a lot, and I want to make sure that my subscribers out there that are definitely, in it and been plugged in with me since the beginning, and they're definitely getting all the content available. I'll have this, and I'll have a condensed audio version of a separate episode pertaining to this as well coming up. So I definitely implore you guys, as always, make sure you get on that. But before we do, I just want to make sure we really, really cover all bases. We're going to be touching on a ton of things. Eagles OTA updates, some things ran over, spillage from the owners' meetings, AJ comments about not, resting on our laurels and getting ready for next season. Even have a nice article from The Athletic regarding Randall Cunningham and the piece that he's found outside of football and his relationship with Jalenhurts. The running back, the number two running back position behind Saquon Barkley. What's the shape out and fallout with that? Also talking about Kevin Patullo and some of the things that I definitely wanted to touch on with that. And I'll have a separate episode dealing with Kevin Patullo and his offensive philosophy for you diehard Eagles fans like myself that are interested in what the offense may look like going into the 2025-26 season. Excuse me. That being said, we're going to first start with some front office news. Happy as hell to hear this. Very ecstatic. Joe Douglas. Now, it has been well reported now that Joe Douglas, was formerly in the Eagles organization, helped the Bird Gang secure the first Super Bowl back in 2017 season. He left to become the Jets GM. He had previous history with Ozzie Newsome in Baltimore as the assistant GM. This guy is, I love Joe Douglas. He knows scouting. He knows how to evaluate talent. He helped build that roster in 2017 that helped us get to a Super Bowl. It seemed like afterwards, Howie and the front office kind of suffered for a year or two since he left. They were able to revitalize the roster since then. However, having a guy like him back is just tremendous. Now, he was at the time, now keep in mind, when he was originally with Philadelphia, he was in there as the vice president of player personnel. Now he'll be coming back as a senior scouting role, which that's his bread and butter. That's more or less his ballpark. I'm not really too shocked by that. When you realize that guys have been in a role that they've coveted their whole life, you fight your whole damn life to get to that GM role. You get there, you get to a shit organization like the Jets. You draft well, but the team doesn't really mesh and gel well. And then you can pretty much get the blame because ultimately, Jack and Brick, didn't like the Madden ratings of the guys that you acquired. Just real shitty situation. So I'm happy to see Joe Douglas back. This is imperative for the Eagles front office because we've been noticing the past several years, the Eagles have been losing a lot of people in the front office because of, nationally, when you're good, when you have a great team, you're going to lose guys. You're going to lose people in your personnel department, guys going to be at GMs, assistant GMs, guys in waiting, helping build up other organizations. So the Eagles, to be able to get somebody who has helped them win before and to bring them back into the fold, even if it's in a reduced role that they once were. Joe Douglas, the mind, the eye that he has for football evaluation, I'm very confident in this move and very happy and just ecstatic that Philadelphia definitely made sure that he's back in the fold because, again, without Joe Douglas, go back and look at those rosters 2018, 2019, 2020. It really took up until 2021 for Howie to kind of figure out, the whole roster thing because that stretch there, I believe the Eagles were like 22-25 or 22-26, very mediocre, had a playoff appearance, missed the playoffs in between then, so just wasn't good. So it's great to see Joe Douglas back in the fold. Next, we're going to touch on, let's see here. Got a lot of content, guys, so I want to make sure I'm getting everything that I'm supposed to. AJ Brown's comments about not lingering in the afterglow of the Super Bowl. I love this. To me, AJ Brown spoke to my heart as an Eagles fan, to the competitive spirit that, I think a lot of us have when we watch this team and root for this team. It is one thing to celebrate a championship. Make no mistake about it. No one can take 2024 away from the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a dominant season with all the bullshit that was going on, little inner locker room bullshit. And it was ultimately guys just want guys to play better. It wasn't like, bickering, like, you're making more money or some asinine, stupid shit like that. It was more or less AJ like, yo, this passing game needs to be better so we can fucking win. We need you to be better, Jalen, and then offensive line, we need you guys to play better in games. Hey, Jalen, I take the onus on him, taking the onus on himself, realizing he had to step up. It was just a lot of things. And when they won, it was a culmination of the ridicule, the doubt, the pessimism, all the speculation and bullshit. They just overcame a lot of adversity. But I couldn't help but respect what AJ Brown said when he said, don't get it twisted. The parade was very special. I celebrated it and it was very fun. But after the moment, it was back to work, back trying to find new ways to get better. That ultimately to me, and I believe that because it's not lip service. He said this right after the Super Bowl on February 12th. This was a couple days after the victory he said this. So they already are in the right mindset. I like what this team is doing. They're clearly focused for this season. They know the challenge that's ahead of them. They know what's at stake. Repeating as champions is very fucking hard. It's easier to win back-to-back than it is to win 3 straight, but it's even harder just to win back-to-back after winning 1. And the challenge will be there. The trophy is beautiful. The moments are beautiful. But ultimately, that's last season. This season now, it's a whole new journey, a whole new battle. There'll be new adversity. There'll be new challenges. So I respect what the hell AJ Brown said, and I'm ecstatic for this season and what is up to come for these 2025 Philadelphia Eagles. Also wanted to touch on, too, Smitty, Devontae Smith as a vet. Now, Devontae Smith didn't make it to OTAs, which is no big thing. Typically, Smitty does not really participate in OTAs. He usually participates in the mandatory camps and, training camp, things like that. But OTAs, not really an issue if he misses it or not. But the one thing that I wanted to give him a shout out for is the growth as a vet. A lot of young guys talking about how they learned a lot from him this past season. But more importantly, even now, right now, as he's training in the offseason, he's helping the Alabama wide receivers prepare for their season. So it just shows you the overall growth. And I'm expecting a very good year from Devontae Smith. Last year, he got injured. He missed a lot of games. He would have had 1,000. He would have had like around 1,100 yards, almost 1,200 yards last year if he hadn't got injured. But he did. It was unfortunate, but he played well. He came back in the most important games that we needed him. And ultimately, I'm just ecstatic. I expect a very big year from Smitty. I expect a very big year from this passing game, period. Just because after all of the bullshit that they dealt with last year, the ridicule, people just assuming that, Jalen couldn't really throw the ball well, and the passing game was ranked horribly. Yeah, and they won the Super Bowl with it. So you do the math for that. But nonetheless, I do expect Smitty to have a big year coming into 2025. Also want to touch on something that I think has been kind of swept under the rug because I think it's something that's in the works, low key. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but this is something that's been well documented. I want to make sure I give a shout out to Brian Baldinger because he was the first one that reported it on NFL.com, NFL Network, excuse me. But it seems that there's real traction to All-Pro safety Justin Simmons wanting to be a Philadelphia Eagle this season. He has commented on the Up and Adams podcast. He's commented it with Brian Baldinger talking. And I mean, I'm going back to an article as far back as, let's see on the date, May 6th. So beginning of this month, this was coming out. But essentially, he wants to come to Philadelphia. I think this would be a great move for the Eagles. You need a veteran presence. You have a lot of young guys there. You have Andrew Makuba. You have Reed Blankenship on the other side, but you also have Sidney Brown in that position that Justin Simmons will play. And I think ultimately those young guys, I think they might be ready to play, but it always helps to have veteran leadership and a veteran presence back there. I don't think it would hurt this team one bit. I don't think he would command a lot of money. I'll have his cap numbers here on the screen that you'll be able to see. But I don't think that he'll command a lot of money for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I do think that that's a move that they could potentially make to bolster their secondary. And make no mistake, if you get Justin Simmons back there, the knowledge that he has of his defense, helping coach these young guys, and then being able to still play at a high level, I just ultimately think that's something that's going to be resonant with him. I think that's going to resonate well with the defense. And like I said, he's still a good safety. He's still one of those guys that played at a decent level and played, he had a solid year last year. He had 2 interceptions, 7 passes defended, 62 tackles, and 2 tackles for a loss. So essentially, he's still a good safety. So that's something I think the Eagles might be interested in. I just think it hasn't happened yet because cap-wise, financially, they want to see what they got with the young guys, how these young guys will develop it, if there's technically a need to bring them in. But I just think for the veteran leadership and presence, it's imperative, especially when you don't know what exactly you're getting back out of Sidney Brown yet. Because again, I've well documented on this show, I've stated it. Sidney Brown is a young good safety out of Illinois. I like him a lot. He showed a lot of flash and promise in that 2023 season. However, he did show a lot of reckless abandon, kind of like, nuclear missile, scud missile through the lane, and then the running back is shooting up the other gap. Not great when you're playing safety and you're supposed to be an in-the-box tackler at times. So that's to be seen. And of course, Andrew Makuba is still a rookie. We don't even know. Now, I like him. I liked what I saw, the tape coming out of Texas. I think he's a very good safety, but there's a lot to kind of still figure out all this. Everything is still fluid. Hell, we know for a fact because Cooper DeJean said it in his press conference recently, 2 days ago, that he's also been experimenting outside at corner. I think that's an imperative thing too, because if you're going to have him outside at corner, that means you're going to be placing somebody in the nickel. If that's the case, then maybe Justin Simmons being acquired at that safety position is even more of a strength than it would be potentially a weakness or a hindrance to the young guy's development. This next article I have, guys, is via Zach Kiefer of The Athletic. Like I said, this is about Randall Cunningham and not scrambling anymore and how he found how the ultimate weapon found peace. Needless to say, Randall Cunningham, one of the greatest Eagles of all time, one of the best quarterbacks, dual threat quarterbacks of all time. That being said, he dealt with a lot of shit in Philadelphia. He's back home in Las Vegas. He gave a nice lengthy interview to Zach Kiefer. I will definitely have the link in the description box of this video. I implore you guys to read it, check it out. Especially if you're a diehard Birds fan, it's a great article about what Cunningham has done since, he's left the game and, how he's been acclimating himself. He's now a preacher. He's been out there. It's 24 years since he's left the NFL, so it's been a long time. But when he talks about the calm and the poise and inner peace that he's found since he left, how, giving a sermon almost feels like getting ready for a game for him and how that energy still matches. And he talked about how, part of him hated being in Philadelphia from the ridicule that he dealt with. And it's just crazy because I really feel like guys like him, they don't ultimately get their flowers until, they're pretty much out of the door, especially in cities like Philadelphia where at that time, the city was starved for a champion. So he dealt with a lot, and we all remember the banner, Randall, don't let that door hit you in the ass. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it was just a lot of things that he had to deal with. He never got to an NFC championship game, never let alone a Super Bowl, and of course, he was an MVP candidate, but just dealt with a lot in Philadelphia. But from the bad, we go to the good. He talked about in February how he basically came to the Super Bowl and supported the Eagles. And he pretty much wore a head-to-toe Fly Eagles fly suit with his name and number on the back. So shout out to the greatest ultimate weapon in Eagles history, Randall. But basically cheered on the birds, and he basically hit Jalen Hurts, and I'll have it here on the screen for you. But quote, a few hours later, he pulled out his phone and fired off a text. "What I didn't fulfill, I'm fulfilling through you." And it's just beautiful to see that the bond he has with Jalen Hurts, and, educating him and coaching him up about how to deal with Philadelphia and how to deal with the adversity, especially as a young black quarterback in a city, a high pressure cooker city like Philadelphia, where it's not really a race thing, but more or less like you're going to get scrutinized for your bad play, your inconsistent play. They will love you and praise you when you play well and you accomplish the ultimate goal like he did in February. But when you're playing like shit, they're going to call you out for it. I myself, as a Birds fan, will call you out for it. So it's great to have that he has his bond. He also talked about, he also checks highlights of himself on YouTube, some of the amazing plays that he made. And sometimes he still sits back in awe and shock about how he even converted some of these plays. So definitely, you get a chance, you're, diehard Birds fan, you've been a Birds fan all your life and you're nostalgic about Randall. Definitely check that article out. It was a great read. Now, getting into OTA news, the most important things right now pertinent to the 2025-26 Eagles. A lot of OTA updates. As I reported previously, as stated, Cooper DeJean has now been testing and playing outside at outside corner. They've been testing him out there. And as he said, he's pretty much doing exactly what the coaches are asking of him. If they feel like he needs to do this, he's going to do this. If he needs to do that, he's going to do that. Whatever is being required of him, even though he's a champion, he kind of proved himself in his rookie year. He knows that each year is a new year, new test, new level, new devil. So gotta love that there. Quinyon Mitchell spoke as well, talking about his progression. He definitely looked a lot more jacked going into the season. You can definitely see he put on some muscle. Can't wait to see Quinyon Bay and how, he plays this year. There's definitely going to be a big year for him as well. Also, absentees from the voluntary OTAs, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Devontae Smith, Reed Blankenship, fullback Ben Van Sumeren, edge rusher Bryce Huff, which I'll touch on that briefly in a second, and also return specialist Avery Williams that we required via free agency that played for the Falcons. Not shocked there. Now, but Cam Jurgens was in attendance, which was a little bit of a shock because he, just came off back surgery not too long ago, but he's there. N'Kobe Dean was in attendance. Jahad Campbell was also in attendance. Edge rusher Nolan Smith also had a brace on his arm. Apparently, we didn't even know this. I found this out within days ago, which is kind of crazy. He tore his triceps during the Super Bowl, which again is fucking amazing that he played the way he did and he had a torn tricep. So be that as it may. Also, too, they got a lot of second team linemen because of the absences of the first guys missing. A lot of backup linemen got a lot of work in. We got to see a little Cameron Williams and Miles Hinton action. So very interesting to see. AJ.Brown was also in attendance. He didn't participate in team drills. Neither did second-year wide receiver Johnny Wilson. However, they did get a lot to look at a lot of personnel because it's going to be a big year for. It sounds kind of crazy, but I think Johnny Wilson, because he worked out with Jalen Hurts last year and because they were getting him involved in the offense, they kind of see him as a poor man's AJ.Brown, I think, in the offense. So they're going to give him touches. They're going to give him opportunity to get touches. They know he's a big body guy. He's not a burner, but he's a big body possession receiver that can make big plays. So I think that's why they're kind of being a little bit more lenient with him. They want to see what they can get out of Jahan Dodsons, the Terrence Marshalls of the world, and the Aniyah Smiths. Because make no mistake about it, I ultimately think one of those guys are getting cut. Jahan Dodson's fifth-year option did not get picked up. That is definitely major news. Anybody who tries to scoff at that, it tells you that that's not major, is bullshitting themselves. Philly was not going to lock themselves into a guaranteed contract for a fifth year on Jahan Dotson, even though I would admit I like how he played in the postseason. I think he was more of an impact in the postseason than he was throughout the regular season. It took him a long while to get acclimated. Now, granted, he did get there late via training camp. It was a trade late in training camp last year. So he didn't really get there until, he didn't really get acclimated until maybe I'd say November, December, to be quite honest with you. However, he still has to prove that he can play. Washington gave up on him. They drafted him. So it clearly tells you what the thought process is. He has to step up and play. But they did. Basically, the Eagles ran a lot of 11 personnel during this camp. But Jahan Dotson, Terrence Marshall, and Nia Smith got a lot of burn. From what the reports read, Jahan Dotson had a strong practice, a couple of big receptions, even had a good reception against Quinyon Mitchell on a comeback route. So that was definitely good there. Most of the focus, though, was on the defense, surprisingly. They ran a lot of 40 front, which had Alex Hunt starting on the left end, Morrow, Joe Moa in at defensive tackle spot next to Jalen Carter, next to Jordan Davis on the inside, and Azeez Ojulari from the Giants that we acquired via free agency on the edge. So interested to see those type of formations. I think Vic Fangio's experimenting early to see what he could do with these guys, what they can and can't do. The linebackers also too, All-Pro Zach Bowen, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as expected were playing. They showed up, were practicing well. Smile Munden Jr. from Georgia was also on the second team with either Dallas Gant or undrafted rookie Lance Dixon. So a lot of guys were getting burned. Quinyon Mitchell also confirmed too that he will indeed be moving to the left side, which was Darius Slay's old position. We all kind of knew this was probably going to happen once Darius Slay went to free agency and was eventually with Pittsburgh. Cooper DeJean also was at right cornerback. They were the only two men on the field on that, working out in those drills. When the defense was in nickel, DeJean moved into the slot. And veteran Adoree Jackson moved out the right corner. We also acquired him via free agency from the Giants as well, which was interesting because that means Kaylee Ringo did not get the nod over Adoree Jackson. So I think they're going to see what the vet can do first. And if he doesn't perform up to snuff, then they're going to put Kaylee Ringo in there. But big year for Kaylee Ringo to prove himself. Big year. Safety play, did a lot of Andrew Makuba. With Reed Blankenship being out, obviously did a lot of Andrew Makuba getting first team looks with Sidney Brown, which we just talked about. Tristan McCullum later on mixing in. They even were getting Lewis Sin and Andre Sam a few reps. And that's pretty much the defense. So you can clearly see Vic is still experimenting with the defense, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, pretty much knocking out the kinks and rust. Also, offensively, both Jalen Hurts and Tanner McKee, obviously, they're throwing against air, but they looked very sharp. They looked very accurate and crisp throwing the football. McKee threw a great ball through one of the OTA practices to Danny Gray in zone coverage, which was a great pass. And it was just, like I said, very good practice, sharp practice from the quarterbacks. And Hurts, his biggest pass was a Dallas Goddard over the middle with Zach Bourne trailing the coverage. So looks like Jalen's working on those touch passes in the middle, which I think is an area of his game that he definitely needs to utilize more. The middle of the field is definitely open for Jalen Hurts, especially with Dallas Goddard being there. And I think it's imperative that if they work on that early, get that part of his game, patting it down, because he's got the crossers, he's got the deep ball, he's got the deep comebacks. It's that middle of the field. If he can get better with those little touch passes, squeezing it in there, not in double coverage, but making that nice touch pass, I really feel like he can really make that next leap into the elevated room of great quarterback play. And really put this team on the map as far as, just consistently being in the Super Bowl conversation with that type of quarterback play. Also, too, the second running back spot, I wanted to touch on that as well. It's interesting because Will Shipley, I love him a lot out of Clemson. He looked natural last year in the passing game. He looked natural in the OTAs. It's also notable, too, that they got A.J. Dillon back there, but they're kind of using Will Shipley a little bit more. As I've been saying, guys, throughout the whole offseason, I really feel like they really are going to allow Will Shipley to take that number 2 running back role. A.J. Dillon is fighting for his supper. His contract is not guaranteed, so it's interesting to see how that's all going to play out. Also, another note on defense from the OTA. Basically, it was notable that Zach Bourne was working with Nolan Smith under the auspices of edge rushing coach Jeremiah Washburn. So it looks like they was coaching up some things there, potential edge rush packages during the special teams drills. Also, too, Jahai Campbell was doing some cross-training on this. And I think once he gets healthy from the shoulder surgery, they'll probably incorporate him a bit more. It was great to see, though. Also, Jason Kelsey made sure he stopped in for practice. Can't help being away, being it with the team. He was chopping it up with Jeff Stoutland and Jurgens as expected, but he was definitely there at practice too. So it was great to see. A lot of great updates from the OTAs. The Birds are definitely applying themselves and getting ready for the season. You can clearly see that there was definitely some things that they're trying out new. Definitely some things that they're trying to adjust. I think ultimately this team is really, getting buttoned up and really showing that they're really doing everything possible to prepare for a good run in 2025. Now, Bryce Huff. I've been waiting to touch on this for a bit now. Bryce Huff has not been at any, and I repeat, has not been at any of the voluntary OTAs or workouts all camp, all offseason. I think it's without saying that he knows that there's a great chance he's going to get traded. It was documented throughout the offseason. He was possibly going to the Atlanta Falcons for Kyle Pitts. Then there was Dallas Goedert rumor there. I think that might still be on the table loosely. I think there's other offers that might potentially be there in the shadows. I think Howie wants to try to recoup as much back as possible, especially with the guaranteed money he's already paid out to Bryce Huff. But make no mistake, they're going to try to get rid of this guy. I would be very, very shocked if Bryce Huff was still there going into the 2025 season. I think that it's imperative that they do get rid of him. You already have pretty much grabbed his replacements this offseason. You got young guys there in the fold. You've drafted too. A lot of these young guys to play. Bryce Huff has proven, and I know it's harsh, one damn season, give this guy a chance, allow him another year in the system. That may be the case. I could be dead wrong, guys. That may be the case. But from what I saw, you played 12 games, you got us 2 sacks. And then to add insult to injury, you didn't even play in the Super Bowl, and they didn't need you. You were an afterthought. So at that point, I'm just like, get rid of him. So get as much as you can. Now, interesting, if you can get Kyle Pitts for him, if you can get a good mid-round pick for him, I feel like that's something you may have to do and just cut your losses, because this guy is just not worked out in any way, shape, or form with this team, especially in the rotation that he's been in. As dominant as his defense has been on the pass rush and in the defensive edge rushing rotations, he's been a fucking non-factor. So I'm not shocked. So hopefully they work it out. Hopefully he lands on his feet somewhere. But I definitely feel like he's definitely one of those guys that they got to get rid of. Touching on some comments from quarterback Jalen Hurts, talking about preparing for this season and adjusting to the new offense. And I love the quote that he had here. I try and do the objective, the undeniable, the winning. I mean, this kid is literally a walking poster board. You can't even say cliches. It's literally motivational fucking quotes at this point. But he talked about a lot of different things, preparing for the offense and getting ready. He stated here, quote, "Nothing's changed in terms of the drive and the effort and the focus that I know that it takes to go out there and do what I'm asked to do. There are a lot of things externally that you really can't control. For me, I've just always focused inward on holding myself accountable and try to do my best. And there may be external perspectives on different things. Ultimately, it's all subjective." And a quote, "I try to do the objective, the undeniable, the winning, but also just focus on the things I can control and take it a day at a time." As always, this kid, this man is just dialed in. I mean, no shock here. I'm definitely, this is what I expected. And I'm definitely happy that he's focused. He talked a little bit about getting happy. He got married this offseason. He was also again named in Time 100's 100 most influential people in 2025. I covered that as well. But again, his main, what he said, keep the main thing is always the main thing is always the main thing. Don't deviate, don't change. You only know what you see, of course. But the routine has always been, quote, whether we play into February or not. And so you set your goals to try to accomplish those things in that moment and in that month. Ultimately, the process is always ongoing. It's always, how can I get better? How can I improve and carry it out? Excited for what Jalen is potentially going to do this year. I expect big passing numbers from him. For this team to grow, for this team to consistently get better, he's going to have to take that next step, passing the football, being more accurate, being more decisive. Because make no mistake, when Jalen is decisive and quick with the football, this team is deadly. This team is deadly. You cannot key in on this team when he's quick, accurate, and decisive. It is damn near impossible to key in. And then with the skill position guys that got on the outside, they're going to kill you. So I'm happy as hell to see that Jalen is definitely dialed in. focus. He talked about, like I said, adjusting the new offense. Essentially, he's ready. He's going to do exactly what it's going to do. It's a fluid situation. So happy to hear those comments. Also was happy to hear from Jordan He touched on too, telling the rookies, challenging them to come for his job, and that to make no mistake, the only way we're going to get better is by challenging one another. And he said it, and I love how the mentality is with this team. It's not about I'm here and you can't take my job. It's no, you're eventually going to be in this spot. So if I don't train you right, you don't prepare properly, you'll never be in this position. Your job is to take my job. And he said, quote, I don't care if you come for my job. He stated here further, let me pull up the rest of his quote. He said, I love our rookies. This is a great rookie class, especially in the O-line room. They work hard. I told Miles and I told Cameron and I told Drew, quote, I don't care if you come for my job. If you're better than me, if you're going to be better than me, but I'm going to make it damn hard for you to reach that. But I'm going to go bring you along. I'm going to kick you down. I'm not going to kick you down, excuse me. That's not how it runs here. That's not how we do it. I bring you along because you'll make me better. So again, veteran leadership and presence, making me feel even more confident about the future of this offensive line and the growth of the offensive line because, the Eagles are always retooling and building the O-line. It's something that they consistently do. So I'm very happy and ecstatic to see the leadership aspect of what Jordan Mailata is bringing to the table. Coming up now towards the end, I want to touch on Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean talked about how he is using ballet to prepare for this upcoming season, being flexible and nimble, which is something I think will definitely help him. He's been playing a lot with some very severe injuries that cost him a little bit in college and also cost him a further deep playoff run this year after an outstanding game against Green Bay, an outstanding season that he had. But he spoke about it via NFL.com and CSNPhilly.com. He said, he talked about how it's supplementing the rehab from the injury, helping him, prepare himself for the season. That there's way more flexibility, of course, way more mobility. It's definitely something that's helping with my rehab. Quote, you just feel a change immediately after you stretch. You're not as tight or as sore. That's key. Because I think a lot of the injuries that he suffered may not have been from not necessarily working out, preparing his body properly, but some guys, their muscles tend to get real tight. I mean, I know. Muscles tend to get real tight and sore after you work out and after you've done a very arduous training. And if you don't stretch properly and make your body very pliable and very nimble, some people reference that TB12 method. I wouldn't recommend that for Zach Bourne or Nakobe Dean in this aspect. But the point being is being more pliable, being more nimble, that is what's going to help you elevate yourself and put yourself in a better health position to play longer and, for a longer stretch of the season. Because make no mistake, I was worried when he got injured. I really thought that, this team was going to suffer. I mean, his numbers last year were outstanding. 128 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and an interception. So that was what they lost, and they were able to replace that within 2 or 3 games, and they still won, so it was amazing. But he is definitely going to be a major part of the package going into 2025, and it's great to see that he's healthy and getting his body ready for this new season. And last but not least, I wanted to touch on offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. Now, I'm going to do a further deeper dive on him and his philosophy on a separate episode via exclusive Patreon. But I wanted to make sure that I touched on this. Kevin Patullo in his press conference talked about a lot of different things. He talked about how the offense will be slightly different going into this season. Just very more of a fluid offense growth that he's expecting. New adjustments, new plays. He said it's going to be an incorporation of what they've already been doing, the Nick Sirianni Eagles base offense, but just some new wrinkles added in there, sprinkled in. Just having the offense, having the offense evolve. He also talked about Scott Loeffler, having him there, having the quarterback's coach, the former head coach from Bowling Green. Talked about the wealth of knowledge, the diverse system and play calling that he has in college and how it's super detailed. And bringing that incorporating that into the Philadelphia offensive scheme. He talked about his relationship with Parks Frazier, who they acquired from Shane Steichen's staff from the Colts, who formerly worked with Nick Sirianni as well. Parks Frazier Patullo talked about Frazier's familiarity with the concepts. Also, how he's another voice in the room, testing them, challenging them on different thoughts and different concepts on how the offense could be better. How it's imperative to have a guy like that in the room, especially with that camaraderie and familiarity. He spoke on the relationship with Nick Sirianni, the dialogue that they have, how they test each other, and they always are willing to get better and always working towards getting better. So I like that. A lot of key things there. And he talked about how the biggest influence of his coaching career and his coaching philosophy is Chan Gailey. And that, like I said, I'll leave that there on that note, and I'll have an episode on Patreon talking about the philosophy. But ultimately, he said his style is a blend of Kellen Moore, Shane Steichen, and Chan Gailey. All offenses are fluid. If you know anything about those offenses, and if you don't, like I said, check out my Patreon episode that I will have detailing Kevin Patullo and what the offensive philosophy will be for 2025 for the Bird game. But that's ultimately going to do it for this episode, guys. Very ecstatic. And one other thing before I wrap up this episode, I popped my shit and dropped a video about it, but I want to make sure I say this again. Very ecstatic that the Tush Push was able to stay at least for another season. The commissioner and the NFL's efforts failed mightily. And I know everybody talked about, well, it was only 2 votes. A lot of people talk to ban it. Yeah, but it's not banned. So that being said, it's going to be great to see it again being used to potentially help the Eagles, build up for another Super Bowl run. And hopefully they get to use it in another Super Bowl and use it in a victory formation to win. So very ecstatic about that. But that's going to do it for this episode. As always, Fly Eagles Fly. I love you guys for always watching. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend.